And there we go. All right. Welcome back to the big board. I thought what I would do today is sort of continue a little, given that we have a little bit of extra time on our hands, continue with a conversation about some of the different aspects of wargaming that some folks might not know about. We talked about terminology and jargon and game terms that are often used, like zones of control, combat factors, movement rates, and all that sort of stuff. So all real fundamental things for the new or novice wargamer. And I thought, well, it's hard to often find war games, and there are a lot of little companies, little itty bitty tiny companies around. So I thought it might be fun to just sort of run down a list. I've got a list of companies here, and hopefully we'll get a few extra folks joining in a few minutes. And I may even add some folks to the conversation in general. So there's more than just me chatting. That'd be nice. And what we'll do is we'll just run through a list, not necessarily in alphabetical order or in size or importance or whatever the case may be, but just as large a list of all the wargame companies that I know of that we can then talk about. And maybe I'll pop them up on the screen if my typing skills are up to snuff. And we'll have a talk about them and see who knows who and all that sort of good stuff. So speaking of larger wargame companies, one of the most, I guess, prolific producers, particularly in terms of volume of war games, war-themed games, and strategy games, would be GMT games. And I think it would be pretty obvious to 95% of all gamers that they are indeed a wargaming company. So let's we can have a look at their website in a second, I guess, if we want to. But I think we might just go through the list and then maybe jump on some of the smaller sites versus the large players in the marketplace. Hey, Kyle, and Wargame YZ, good to see you. So GMT Games, obviously, probably the largest by volume wargame publisher today that I'm aware of. I don't think any other companies produce as many copies per title around. Obviously, Twilight Struggle, the Euro/war-themed Cold War game, funds a lot of their activity, and their coin system funds a lot of war games for us. So they're a big vendor in the marketplace, and probably don't need to say too much more about them. I encourage you to go look at their site, obviously enough. Next on my list was MMP, or Multi-Man Publishing. And by the way, does anyone know what the GMT stands for? Because that's probably a cool little quiz for you, and we'll come back to that in just a few minutes. We'll let folks join in. And if you know what the acronym GMT stands for, then maybe I'll try and think in the back of my mind what I can give away to a listener, watcher while we do this. All right, so MMP, Multi-Man Publishing, really rely pretty heavily, from my viewpoint anyway, on their ASL franchise, Advanced Squad Leader franchise, with their historical modules, and they're constantly trying to keep that stuff in stock. It's very difficult for them. They're a much smaller company than people realize, I think. I think there's 2 owners and a couple of investors, and then they have wives and a handful of part-timers, and obviously a lot of volunteers who help punch stuff out. So they rely very heavily on ASL franchise, which they license from Hasbro, I believe, and that might. And I know that's expensive for them. So they have a pretty high cost model, produce everything in the United States. They also have, they acquired the Gamers quite a long time ago. And that's the Dean Essick design company that's now no longer. But that's and here we go with a whole string of acronyms, right? OCS, SCS, TCS, all the Civil War systems, Line of Battle, and all the others that aren't really happening anymore. They had a Napoleonic system, MBS. bunch of different systems, the new battalion combat system. And yeah, and they also have a license, as Kyle mentioned here in the comments, for the great campaigns of the American Civil War. It's also licensed from Hasbro. It used to be an Avalanche Hill product. So pretty comprehensive suite of games at many different scales. And I think that they seem to struggle to get a lot of volume out every year. And I don't know why that is, but you'll find them having a much longer lead times. Anyway, this is not a conversation about the production volumes or capabilities of the company, just making you aware of who they are. Steve, welcome. And by the way, if you are just joining in, do please just at least say hi so we know who's here. That'd be nice. Makes it nicer for me to talk to you instead of talking to my face. Avalanche Press. There's a company that is now a one-man shop. I think they do everything in-house. They have seems like a very spotty record of late, but they own a lot of naval titles and the Panzer Grenadier system. And hey, Shane, good to see you here again. And a swag of other titles that I really must admit I have not played very many of at all. You don't hear much about them anymore, and I don't even know if they're still in existence. So, but they are a game company that does occasionally produce new titles and may have some stock. Hey, Gilly, it's good to see you. And Flip Movie Maker, that's a cool name. Let's see. Compass Games. Compass Games has always been, to me, a very niche, small player. They have an unusual pre-order system, and you kind of always was wondering what the hell they were doing, and the quality was always spotty. And over the last, I guess, 18 months, 24 months, maybe it's longer, maybe it's 3 years, but the volume of titles has increased. The quality of the finished product has improved a lot in terms of map quality and counter quality. And they're really focused at the moment, it seems anyway, on a lot of reprints and deluxe editions or designer final edition, the best edition ever of older games from 3W, Avalon Hill, a bunch of different companies. I can't remember them all off the top of my head. VG Games, Victory Games. So there's a swag of titles there that are coming out that are basically reprints with updated graphics, hopefully, and generally speaking, some errata for all the errors or mistakes that were in the old game, and then some enhancements and expansions for the game based on new history, right? So that's all kind of interesting. Hey, Keith, good to see you, man. You're busy teleworking. Good for you. Itinerant, what's going on, man? So I thought that might be interesting to have a to let you know about that. Hang on just one sec. I got a little administrative thing to take care of here. And just real quick. Just bear with me and we'll get back into the swing of things. All right. Now I can't find you. There we go. All right, I'm back. Steve, good to see. Let's see. We've got Steve Chichetnis. Yeah, that's right, Steve. They do have the rights to AH. So, I'm gonna drop the. No, I'm not. I got it. I'm trying to grab my beer so we don't spill it or drop the laptop. Is it bad to use my book as a coaster? Yeah, I'll use my phone instead. All right. Okay, so where we got to Compass. So I think Compass is doing a really good job lately. I'm pretty impressed with the quality. There have been some, some issues here and there with some of the product that are coming out, but I think that happens with every company. I don't know anyone that's getting it perfectly right. Legion Games is another war game company. probably in the absolutely in the lower volume. It's a one-man shop. It's takes on all comers, I would say, in terms of designers who want to publish that one dream, that one dream game that they've had in their head, and Legion will take you on pretty much. So they probably would have the reputation of being the publisher of the esoteria, right? The esoteric titles, the smaller volume, 250 copies, 500 copies. So if you see something on their site that you want to jump on, you should get it straight away, because they tend to go out of print pretty quickly. Although I know Kim Kanga does use their site almost exclusively, them as a house to publish through, and he has a pretty good name in the marketplace for design. So I think Legion's doing some great stuff. They have good quality games, great quality components, and usually pretty spot on artwork as well. Okay, what else we got here? Holland spiel. Holland spiel exploded on the marketplace, and I don't want to guess the number of years now because I'll get it wrong. It feels like 2 years, but I think it's more. They are well over 50 games published now. They're a print-on-demand shop. You've got to appreciate that everything is pretty much small format for them. They're doing smaller games with smaller maps and the large, thick counters. It's not your typical hex encounter publisher. They tend to make some solo games, card-driven games as well. All of them with a really nice theme. Tony, Monday would be awesome, dude. I have a busy day Monday, so it would need to be like 1 o'clock in the afternoon or early morning, and I could, but I need to get off at 10:30. Busy day for a COVID week, right? Not a real week. And then where was I? Hollenspiel. So Tom and Mary have done a great job. Once again, they're also probably an esoteric publisher. They'll publish odd topics and some controversial topics as well. They have a game about the slavery era in America, which is pretty interesting. And yeah, one would be perfect, Tony. And then the other, I would say, the thing that I like about them as well is that their rules are always less than 10 or 12 pages, and they're rich choices in the gameplay. That every game I've played there, it's always been, well, I shouldn't say that. Every game bar one that I've played, I've thoroughly enjoyed. Oh, and you know what, Steve, this is a good point. Nez, I have not got New England on my list, so let me add that so I don't forget it, and we'll do it right now. It's just kind of funny since I just played one of their games. That's a great comment. So yeah, Hollenspiel, fantastic. Now, Nez, let's talk about Nez. New England Simulations. Talk about low volume. Those guys are doing one game every couple of years, and they're often a reboot or a reimagining of an SBI either title, or taking the system, an SBI system, and expanding upon it and making it a little deeper and richer. And so they became quite famous with their Killing Ground, which is a Victory in the West game system, and it probably stretched the Victory in the West game system to its absolute maximum capabilities. But it's quite a powerful game, and just recently released Jaws of Victory, which is a smashing good fun game too. So and Elau was coming out, if that's the correct way to say it. Sorry for all you pronunciation snobs, but that's coming out in the next year or so, and I'll be super excited about that game. I love that battle. It's a fascinating Napoleonic experience. Right, Nez, Hollenspiel, Flying Pigs. Now, Flying Pigs is an unusual company because it's really three companies. It's Flying Pigs, Tiny Battles Publishing, and then their magazine arm, Ya Magazine. And they all do different things. Ya has a game in each magazine. Tiny Battles is really a folio game company, and they tend to do, Doc Leach, how you doing? They tend to do sort of one-off titles and some really odd titles as well. So they had some funky sci-fi titles and smaller games, some solo titles as well. And it's at a price point, $25 that will give you pretty good bang for the buck. Not super excited about the Tango Down as one of their games that I do like a lot. I'm not super excited about the map or the counter quality, but but good games overall. You're just not getting, you're not getting the GMT experience, right? But GMT's a $45 to $75 game, so there is that. Which reminds me about Compass. That's one thing about Compass that has always kind of tweaked me a little bit, is I find their games to be a tad expensive, and I guess that's the print runs, but that is what it is, right? Anyway, where are we at? Oh, Flying Pig. Now, so at the other end of the spectrum for that company is all their other titles. So Armageddon Wars and the Old School Tactical and Herman Luttman's. I can't remember the name of it now. You know the one with the climbing the cliffs. What's that called? Point to Hawk. Damn it. Anyway, that game, super high-end quality. So all the counters are 1 inch. All of the maps are mounted. All of the artwork is pretty stellar. Sometimes the rule books leave a little bit to be desired in terms of layout and function, usability and things like that. But generally speaking, very well playing games and very, very rich content. And they're all done on Kickstarter as well. They've got a couple of new modules coming out next week, actually on Kickstarter for the Old School Tactical system, and that should be pretty crowbar. Thank you, Kyle. What did I do with that, you guys? Art drove someone nuts. Oh, for Tim. Tim, did you do the maps for crowbar, by the way, or did you do the maps for Jaws of Victory? I'm not sure which one you're referring to. I'll have to wait for the lag to catch up there, but we'll come back to you if you mention that. I'm going to put this up so maybe you'll hear my comment. Tim's a great artist for a number of different companies and got lots of respect. You know who's not on this list? I just realized I'll probably get shot for not remembering them. All right, I'll do them next, in fact. So Crowbar. Yeah, so tell me, so if you have a moment, Tim, just tell me about the artwork in your post in the comments. I'd be curious about why it was driving you nuts. And the next publisher we should talk about, Decision Games. Now, Decision Games is kind of the, I guess, all the old men from SPI, or what's left of them, and they own all the rights to the SPI titles, and they have gone through a pretty interesting exercise. They don't publish a lot of games every year. In fact, they're lucky to get one out a year. They have a tendency to do larger box, you can't see, but like significantly large box games. So they have the GOS system, and it's the Grand Operational something system. Very complex. They redid Pacific War, which has not been well received. They redid Wellington's Victory, which has not been well received. Both of those last two titles were actually full reimaginings of the game using the name of the prior SPI game, which kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit. Decision Games in general tends to rub me the wrong way a little bit. I find their magazines and their magazine games a lot of regurgitation and a lot of repeated content. And then the larger box reboots are super expensive, and they tend to have issues. And so I'm always waiting until I hear from someone I trust as to whether or not I'm going to jump in on one of their titles. I bought Wellington's Victory on a lark. What a disappointment. I have a dishwasher beeping at me in the background. I may have to go fix that. And I also picked up the Pacific War just because I was super curious about that system. And very expensive game and extremely frustrating and disappointing to date. Yeah, I'm going to have to fix this, guys. So hang on one sec. enjoy the sunshine. I love how all of the modern appliances talk to us until we respond. It's kind of like being married, but anyway. Okay, so now let's come back to Tim Allen's comment here. I had to relay the out 3 times because the printer kept changing the templates. That sounds frustrating and expensive. Thank you for sharing that with me, Tim. Now, Kyle, so look, I don't see a lot of stuff coming out on their website, and I don't see any announcements from that. They have the worst marketing of any of the wargaming companies ever, like even worse than Multi-Man Publishing, which is really hard to beat. You know, I get that announcement, that little newspaper they send out once a year or twice a year, whatever it is. It's black and white, like it's like an old newspaper, and it comes out and says, "Oh, we're going to be publishing a game next year. It's January now, 2020. We'll be releasing a game." So I'm not seeing these folios. Most of those folios, I think, are just straight reprints, aren't they? Kind of like that old Leningrad game that was so horrible. They redid it 3 times and it still sucked. Did I say that out loud? That was supposed to be an interior thought. Sorry, people. All right. Yeah, and then the Napoleonic 20 series. That'll be interesting actually, because that wasn't a bad little game. Series. So that's DG. I don't really have a whole lot to say about them. TRL, the Thin Red Line Games. Obviously, if you follow my channels at all, you'll notice that I'm playing Deadly Northern Lights, which is the Under the Iron Sky system, which is a reimagining of SBI's Next War. And I think it's a pretty interesting and involved game system. It's busted my balls at the moment, so I'm enjoying it, but it's tough. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of moving parts going on there. And with that, they are a European publisher and one of the up-and-coming European publishers. They've put out 3 games so far in the last 18, 24 months, and I'm super impressed with the quality of the components. And I'm very impressed with the gameplay. Only game I haven't liked from them as much as the others has been the last 60 miles. That was too simulation heavy and not enough game or fun for me, but that's just me. Anyway, hey, Bob, good to see you here. And who else we got coming on here? Oh, Bob. Don't be that guy. It's okay. You know what? I could sit here and ramble on and just tell you that everything's rosy and glorious, and you'll go buy the games, and then you'll secretly hate yourself and not listen anymore, right? So if you don't want to hear the truth, go watch Marco. He'll tell you everything's great. All right. What else we got? TRL, so another European game manufacturer. And so TRL is interesting because they were in Italy, in Milan, no less. And the chap moved to France because he was frustrated and upset with the political situation in Italy. Moved to the south of France, or the Midwest of France, I believe, and has a beautiful home there, and is living the dream. But Vento Nuovo is another wargame company out of Milan that I'm a huge fan of. And for me, you know, I'm not a big block game guy, so block games are the kind of the core premise behind Vento Nuovo. They and mostly area based as well. So pretty interesting stuff. I thing I like about them is they tend to think a little bit outside the box when it comes to block games. So it's not like, and that just reminded me, I just thought of another game company that we need to add to the list here. You can probably all guess who it is since I said block games. But let's see. Where was Vento? Yeah, so I think they're trying to stretch the genre of block games and the game mechanics, the way combat's resolved, the the timing of turns and how turns work mechanically is really, really interesting, and I'm really have enjoyed all of their games. Even playing them solo, I've had a really good time with them, which is saying a lot for block games because I'm not a big fan, generally speaking, of block games. All right. And they started out, they did Waterloo 200. They did blocks in the East, blocks in the West. Not a huge fan of blocks in the West. I love the Africa module and I love the East Front module. And then, of course, they've done the 41 series, Kiev, Leningrad, and Moscow. And then the solo game, Stalingrad Inferno, which I think has one of the most simple and elegant AIs out there for a solo game, and it's fantastic. Now those games, they're a little expensive, right? But a lot of neat little features in them. The latex stickers on them are able to be taken off and reapplied for quite a long time. All the maps have got this coating, sort of latex coating on them, I think it is, or some sort of coating that makes them basically waterproof. And they offer up larger, upscaled Gore-Tex maps, print maps as well. Although I think they use a different product now. It used to be Gore-Tex; it's something else now. Super high quality artwork. It's very vibrant and vivid, so it's not for everybody. I totally appreciate that. But I like the way that they incorporate including information on the map that's relevant to the gameplay without it being overbearing, right? They've just got a nice balance there. A lot of use of color on the counters and on the blocks, so that intrinsically know that because if something's red, it means one thing. If it's black, it means another. If it's white, it means another. So I like that. All right, enough about them. Now, then my next one, and someone just mentioned this here. Where is he? Yeah, Mark Trowbridge was going to be my next company. Was going to be Hexasim, actually. So another slower producing war game company, and small. Focused on Napoleonics and the medieval era with a Japanese medieval era. Amazing gameplay, great for the early wargamer or the new wargamer. Relatively well priced. I think they're trying to keep stuff generally in production. So they have done 3 Napoleonic games now. 2 or 3 of the Japanese samurai era stuff and shogunate style stuff, and then they also have the Liberty Roads, Victory Roads, the Russian front, and the Normandy landings, which are both also very, very good games. And there was one other, I think maybe it's not out yet. Anyway, now I'm probably getting my stuff confused now. So totally. Totally a fantastic war game company to support. And those last 3 or 4 companies I mentioned, smaller firms, right? And I feel like we all owe it to ourselves to give those companies a shot, to try their games out and appreciate that they're trying to innovate and doing their best to be cost effective and give us an enjoyable gaming experience. And I contrast that against folks like DG and to some extent MMP, and it's like you guys are just kind of doing the same old thing, and I don't know that you've got our best interest at heart. So you'll often see me probably be way more effusive about some of these smaller producers like Holland Spiel, right? I'm not a huge fan of Holland Spiel's counters. I don't like those thick blocky counters. I've never really said that on a video. They don't excite me. I just find them kind of clunky and slippery and stuff like that. But I love all the game mechanics in their games, and so I'm really sitting in an awkward situation here. I'm kind of straddled across a chair so I can keep this camera at a decent angle. But their game mechanics and their gameplay are so rich and so interesting and so evocative that I just I forgive the counters, right? Anyway. I'm just looking who's got something here. So Kyle, you need to pop me a link if you could post it here, and we'll bring that company up maybe and have a look at it because I'm unfamiliar with Philippe. is starting a company. That's interesting. I've met Philippe and had dinner with him and drinks and stuff. I think I met him twice, actually. He's a great guy. I love Philippe. Okay. Vento, nuovo, Hexasim, another European French company, Prats and Editions, not a well-known firm, really have focused entirely on Napoleonics. And it's there's so many different systems in Napoleonics. There's the Clash of Arms guys, who we'll get to in a second, who do the high-end La Bataille system, super complex and involved. And then there's the other end of the spectrum of the GMT games and the Jours de Glory games, which are pretty straightforward. And then there's systems in the middle, like the Hexasim Napoleonics system, which is what is that called? Rising Eagles, or something like that. And that's an interesting game company. Sorry, an interesting game system. But Pratsen is at the higher end of complexity, with 3 or 4 different levels of command systems that you can choose, and perhaps an overly deadly combat system. I don't know. It might just be my opinion, but pretty interesting game system. Funky maps and beautiful counters, but it's a little involved to work out who belongs to what. So that's Pratsen, but strictly focused on Napoleonics. They have that sort of tactical level stuff, but then they have this fantastic sort of campaign level game that's more for, I forget what the right word is that you would call that game system, where you basically have a map and you don't know anything, right? So you have a map and you're moving your army inches on a map, and it's umpired, and it's basically a play by email type of game system, and then the umpire will resolve battles and things like that. Okay, so while we're here, and I mentioned Clash of Arms, not really a one-trick pony, but they're focused on La Bataille. They have some other game systems as well, some air war stuff, and there's some other titles, but once again, small shop, very limited runs. They don't, I think the La Bataille stuff, they only do 400 copies of everything, which means that things go out of print very quickly, and they very rarely do reprints that I'm aware of, although about the Moscow title has been reprinted several times. So White Dog Games. I don't know a whole lot about White Dog Games, and I'd like to know more. Smaller format, mostly folio games from what I've seen, and pretty interesting stuff, but just I've never had the opportunity or the inclination to go pay for one of their titles and try them out. I'd be happy to do that at some point. Yeah, Wings Over the Motherland is another COA game. Yeah, that is that I've heard that's pretty involved and detailed. So they tend to lean in towards the very technical and complex war game systems, which is, it's all good, right? I love a good complicated game every now and then. One Small Step. I don't know what to say about them. They sort of hit the market with a splash. They had a lot of Brian Train titles out, then they had a lot of Ty Bomber titles out, and then they kind of just went away. I don't see email from them anymore. I don't see Facebook social media posts from them anymore. I'm going to try and move here. So just hang on 1 second. This cheater is killing me here. Let's see. I don't know what's going on with them. I'd like to know more, but I don't. So I'd like to share more with you, but I really don't know very much about what's going on with them of recent days. One Small Step. Let's see. So then Vuca, VUCA. They have one game out and a couple of titles that are up for. One was on Kickstarter. They ordered a Sicily-based title, and they did the Battle for Aachen title, which I quite enjoyed, which is a reboot. But they did a refinement of the rules and a refinement of the game system, and obviously boosted up the content of the map and counters and stuff like that pretty significantly. So that was pretty awesome to have that experience with them. I'm trying to think of the name of the game. I know it escapes me. I really wasn't here to talk about specific titles, but interesting game company based out of Spain. Another up-and-coming war game company. I think they're doing great things. So you should keep your eye out for them as well. All right. I'm getting to them, Tim. Just relax. In fact, they're coming up 1, 2, 3 down. DVG, Dan Versen Games, one of the perceived larger players in the marketplace with all of their solo games, which are extraordinarily popular. So you've got, Flight Leader and Phantom Leader and the Warfighter titles and the Sherman Tank Leader and Nimitz and all that sort of stuff. Lots and lots and lots of games, a pretty high production rate. They tend to do pretty well with their Kickstarters. And I'm impressed with. I've only played Phantom Leader from them, and I have played the Warfighter game. I'm not a big fan of it. It's too beer and pretzely and not very immersive for me. But lots of people love it, and I can totally see why. I think it's more fun actually setting your guys up and getting organized than it is actually playing the game and running down the track to try and get your objective. But anyway, so DVG. Super popular company, lots of fans of that. So I would encourage you, if you're a new wargamer, to try some of their solo games, like their tank games, or if you're into aircraft, Apache Leader or Phantom Leader. I played that. I love that. It was super fun for a solo game. Lots of good decisions to make for a solo system. All right, where was I? I kind of skipped around a little bit here. Oh, smaller publisher, Pacific Rim Publishing. I only used to own one of their games, and it was an Ardennes-based title that I now cannot remember the name of. They have a kind of spotty history with me. I don't know very much about them, and they have one game on pre-order right now that I'm aware of, which is a very large, very expensive reboot of Corsun Pocket, and that's designed by Jack Rady, who is, an East Front expert, if you want to call him that. He's the David Glance of wargaming, maybe, for the East Front. Super opinionated dude, but pretty interesting guy to chat with, and he has lots of great data on pretty much everything that is East Front. So that's Pacific Rim. That's all I really know about him. Can't say a whole much else. I mentioned NES. I mentioned DG. And I had another one pop in my head when I said DVG, but I'll come back to that. Columbia. Oh, that's right. What's used? Academy Games. How can we forget Academy Games? Academy Games to me seems to be leaning more towards becoming a high-volume Euro game producer or strategy game producer. Super high component quality. Really hung their hat for me as a wargaming company on the Conflict of Heroes system, which is a lot of fun. I've only had one successful game of that solo, and you sent me Uwe sent me a review copy of their latest Conflict of Heroes title, and I have not done that justice yet and haven't published any videos on it. That sucks to be me. I owe him that, so we need to get after that for a while. But a great game company if you're looking to get into some strategy games and some other bits and pieces. They're all into it, and their tactical games are interesting. Clash of A Conflict of Heroes is a good system, from what I've played. Columbia, and then we'll talk about Worthington. So Columbia, been around for a long time. Tons and tons and tons of block war games that are. I'm trying to get comfy here. Maybe I need to get some new furniture. Now I'm in the shadow. We'll get comfortable at some point, fellas. what was I going to say about Columbia? Lots of games with very similar systems with a different map, right? And a different number of counters and some thematic cards. So they're all card-driven block games typically, and everyone loves Richard the whatever it is third. And I was quite enjoyed the Julius Caesar title, but I've found quite a few of the games to be somewhat generic. A lot of people like the East Front title and series. I am not as big a fan of that as, say, Blocks in the East. I found the gameplay to be very easy to hack on that, and it's almost impossible for the Germans not to win in that game system. So that's always interesting. But they do, there are, as Kyle has said, for a 10-page rule book, if you want to get some good gaming in with some friends and draw other people into the game systems or the world of wargaming, and you're looking for a particular historical theme, then I think they're a great company to be talking about and to buy a game and try them out. So I wouldn't dismiss them from that perspective. I just found after playing 2 or 3 different games from their series that they all started to feel a little bit the same. But anyway, that's just me. Hammer of the Scots that's the one of the classic ones, right? So that's what everyone gets excited about. All right, now one of the things. So I don't know if anybody else knows any other wargame companies. Yeah, Battles from the Age of Reason is also another system. Mitchell, hey Mitchell, how you doing, man? Good to see you here. So we've got a bunch of guys have snuck in while I've been crapping on here. I'm just looking here to see what we got going on. If I've missed any wargame companies that you guys think are worthwhile. What is, Tony, what does WDG get solo games? What does that mean? Can you speak English to me and then tell me what you meant if you're still here? I give Tony a hard time because he's a friend. I can talk to him like that. Oh, and of course, I am so sorry, Tim. High Flying Dice. A prolific print and play wargame company. So they'll send you can either buy the files and mount them yourself, or they'll send you the game with the counters that are uncut, and you're going to cut them out yourself. So you have to do arts and crafts. But I've played 1 or 2 of their games, and they all tend to rely on a deck of cards for the randomness generator. And the prolific, if you're looking for a game company that covers a lot of different war topics, that would be your company. That said, I'm kind of like Columbia there. I find them to be relatively generic in their game mechanics being applied with some slightly different artwork and obviously a different map, because they tend to try and keep things fairly historical. But I find that there's a sameness in the gameplay, kind of like way back in the day with the old SBI game systems that came out of the magazines. It was all the same game rules with basically some tweaks here and there for the specific circumstances, and then a different map and some different counters and things. So, but they're once again a popular game company that I think what they lack in volume, they pick up in volume of titles that they produce. Let's see, and OSG is one that I was going to get to as well. Thanks, and I would not have picked up on Red Sash Games. Red Sash Games, tiny publisher, and there's another one out of Finland that has just one or 2 games as well, and I don't recall their name. If someone could look that up, that'd be awesome. It's the Finnish Front game, and then they have some one battle where the Finns fight the Germans when they swap sides in World War II. So I don't know the name of that company. It starts with a T, I think. But either starts with a T or the game starts with a T. Red Sash, tiny. They have the Lace Wars game system, which is basically an operational scale set during the Lace Wars which I think is the 16 or 1700s. I forget, but amazingly broad brushed operational scale with dozens of maps, and I think it's either battalion or division scale, with lots of politics and economics and all sorts of groovy stuff. It looks absolutely fascinating, but not something that I've tried out. So they're a tiny little publisher, and you would have to be pretty specifically interested in that particular part of the world or that part of the history to jump in on that guy. Miku, there it is, 20044. Thank you, von Holdenhausen. Excellent. Tiny company. And I bought, in fact, so I bought 20044 thinking, oh, this will be kind of like a nice introduction to the big Monster Finish Front game, because I'm kind of curious about that game. It would be fascinating to me to play that monster game. And I thought it'd be a nice little intro, but it's a completely different system. So that kind of screwed that pooch right there. Let me see who else we got. OSG. So we got to talk about OSG, right? So Operational Studies Group. And once again, another Napoleonic game system company that has many different scales, from tactical and grand tactical, which is all in kind of one box. You can do, it's the Napoleonic Library of Battles. Lots and lots of work going into that. And then they have multiple campaign level games. That's probably where the sweet spot for me with that game system. Obviously a very, very old system. Kevin Zucker first designed that game system for Napoleonic Library of Battles back in the 70s. It's obviously been refined and updated, but in essence, the same game system that was built in the 70s for SBI. The set piece battle games I'm not super excited about. I like some of the approach to battle. Longer campaign games within the library of games. Lots of hidden counters and hidden movement, not hidden movement, but unknown information. So it's not particularly solo friendly. And I think the campaign level games tend to give you a feel for the operational scale of Napoleonic warfare, would be a fair way to say it, depending on which of the multiple scales you choose. There's very confusing set of systems there that he's developed, and I really wish he'd reinvest in those sort of higher level operational games for us, and reboot some of those games, because they're interesting, but they just need a little fixing. Let's see who we got here. Have we forgotten anybody? Oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. And it's on my list too. How do I skip you? Keith, because you were here, I think I just kind of forgot. I thought I'd mentioned you, but Keith Tracton is the designer of World at War, which is from Lock and Load Publishing, obviously enough. And I can't believe I forgot them. They're like one of the big guys. So a multi-person company, lots and lots of titles, lots and lots of systems. So they've got World at War, which used to be called World at War, but now it's World at War 85, with a rebooted, redeveloped, redesigned game system, improved counters, improved artwork, improved maps, some slightly different mechanics, but still the same fundamental awesomeness of World at War. They've got the Lock and Load tactical system, obviously enough, and then a swag of other stuff, as well as a whole digital suite where they're bringing games like their Nations at War, World War II, platoon scale games, into the digital world. So they're really becoming literally a multimedia gaming company. So I'm pretty excited about them, and I'm obviously a huge fanboy. Not that you would know, because I left them to last. But anyway. Oh, Kyle. Geez, ADG. Okay. World in Flames. It is what it is. It's a monster monolithic one game company, and God bless you if you can play it. I know lots of people love it. Not something I've ever had the ability to get my head around. So let me see. What do we got here? L2. Yeah, L2. I think they still have stock, but they're not doing anything new. They were trying to do the Streets of Stalingrad reboot. That fell into contentious times in terms of copyright and ownership of maps, and game systems and who was going to get what money from the Kickstarter, and it all fell in a big, dark, horrible hole. So now look, so there's also, this is really just what I know of the war game world, which is by no means comprehensive. There are folks that have been playing games for 40 years continuously and know lots and lots more wargaming companies that are still around, and some of the niche stuff. I haven't mentioned the Polish wargame company, the chap's name who I can't pronounce, and there's him. There's also Hobby Japan. There's lots and lots of other little companies that are doing cool, innovative things that if I hear about them, I'll try and promote them and raise awareness of them, as long as they have a decent product, right? Some of them I'm not going to get all excited about telling you about a game. I did mention Vuca already. I mentioned them earlier on. Crossing the Rhine, the Battle for Aachen. We talked about that, and then the Road to Salerno is their new, I think it's called the Road to Salerno, is their new title that they've got coming out that I'm super excited about. So if you hear of new publishers, and I can get even just a look at the rules and the content, I don't need a free copy of the games. I'm happy to buy the games if they're reasonably priced. Or if I can get a discount on them, I'll try and do a review and be fair with them. But there's a lot of smaller companies out there that print and play or self-published or that type of thing that I don't do arts and crafts, and so I don't look at them and I don't mention them or have much awareness of them. But the good news is that the really, really good print and play games will end up being printed one day by some of these smaller niche publishers that are coming out, and they're working out how to do things differently, which is very cool. And doggone it, I meant to mention Worthington Games. Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with Worthington. I like some of their titles, but even though they are small, and they make block war games, I find their games to be very expensive for what you get, based on quality and gameplay. And I'll probably get yelled at for that, but that's kind of my gut takeaway. Every time I look at one of their Kickstarters or one of their products and I go compare it to something similar in the marketplace, I'm always left wondering, what am I paying for, particularly after buying these games and trying them out and being less enthusiastic. And I would think, given their games are ideal for beginners and for new wargamers, that if they priced them differently or could up their scale, their volume, so they could reduce the prices, that they would sell a whole lot more, because they're great introductory war games. I just don't get a whole lot out of them. And I'm going to come back to, see, Tim, I disagree. I don't think that they're beautiful games at all. I name one that's beautiful. I mean, Korea is not. Their East Front game is not. That combat infantry thing is not. It's a horrible looking thing. Not super excited. Oh, you know what? Another one. Here's another one. Here's a game company that's doing good things that could use a little boost. Revolution Games. They make, they're doing a lot of Ziploc stuff. They're doing a lot of chit pull activation system games. They're doing some really good things too. And I've bought a lot of their games. Gazala, the Washington's Crossing game, which is a riff on one of Kevin Zucker's game systems. So they're a great quality war game company that seems to publish at a great price point in a Ziploc bag that gets you into a game and get you going. Some of those chip pull activation games, though, I must admit, they are a game. It's not really going to be a historical exploration of what happens just because of the chip pull, because it gets wacky. So that's interesting. What else is going on here? That I'm just looking through these comments here. There's some good comments, guys. I have not heard of this company. Oh, and that's a good point, Kyle. The Revolution Games is doing a lot of Herman Luttman's Blind Sword system. If you want to play a Gettysburg a Gettysburg system, tactical system. I'd highly encourage you to find Gettysburg. Did I really say that? An American Civil War system that is easy to get into and gives you a lot of theme and a lot of flavor for ACW. I'd encourage you to have a look at the Blind Sword system. And Revolution Games has the most titles, I think, under their belt for Herman. Otherwise, I think Tiny Battles has one as well, which is actually on a subset of the Gettysburg battle. So Hethwill, tell me a little bit more in the link if you can, or post a link for me for Forsage Games, because I don't know them and I've never heard of them before. I would like to have a look at them. Worthington Games. So Tim Allen, you mentioned that someone had beautiful games. Maybe that was you saying that was Worthington. Just trying to see what else is here, fellas. John Longshore, I think you're being sarcastic. I'm trying to see what's going on here. Monster Operational Games. Yeah, so great campaigns with American Civil War would do that for you, Captain Eggman. I'm trying to see what I saw a comment here that I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah, Kyle. You know what? So of all the games, right, from Worthington, I think Victoria Cross is probably I would say is my favorite. Right. This comment here, right? It is a good looking game, and that would be the exception to the rule, though. And there is I think they did one of the Viking games maybe, and that looked pretty good as well. So, and Carrick, good to see you, man. I haven't chatted with you in a long time, my friend. Wargame Process Edition, another company I just do not know. Are they the guys that have the little stands that go underneath the counter and you rotate the stand to represent the losses? I think I saw that Kickstarter. Wasn't sure how that was going to work out. I'm going to try and pick something up secondhand once it's out. Can't see anything else here. Any other comments before we start wrapping this sucker up here in terms of new wargame companies or existing wargame companies we haven't covered? Okay, you did back it, Carrick. Okay, cool. Well, maybe we can have a talk about it one day. Once you've played it a couple of times and tell me what you think. All right, let's see. Let me see if I can. Wait, you moved to Virginia? When did that happen? No one tells me anything these days. All right. So this is video number 2 of kind of my looking at the basics of the wargame world. So we did a discussion today about. Oh wait, I'm not done yet, am I? I still have other stuff to tell you. So we're not. Don't go yet. So this video number 2, introduction to sort of wargaming and wargaming 101 type of stuff. The other video I did last week or earlier this week talked about common terms. This, we're looking at all the wargame companies. I'm going to do some other videos and start looking at different scales and different things like that. And we'll actually have images, and I'll show you some of the games with. I'll walk around with the camera or whatever the case may be, and we'll have a squiz. I know I said earlier on that I'd pull up some of the websites, but I don't think we need to do that together. That's kind of lame. We've talked about all these game companies. I will try and update the description to put some of the smaller game companies in the link, just to give them a bit of a boost. You should all know who GMT and Lock and Load is, and MMP and all the rest of it. And this is not an advertorial, so you go work it out for yourselves. If you heard something that sounded interesting, hopefully you wrote it down. And what I did want to ask everybody, while I've got some of you here still, what are you playing this weekend, and what dice are you rolling? Are we doing D6s or D10s or D20s? So please join in. And you had a heart attack, Carrick? I am so sorry, bud. I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully it wasn't during the COVID crisis. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gotten any doctoring. And so while that question is percolating inside all your heads, I'll be playing Lock and Load Tacticals Heroes of the Red Star. I'm playing In the Streets battle. I'm going to try and do a stop motion gameplay of that. I'm still playing Deadly Northern Lights. We're on turn 4. I'm probably going to wrap it up in the next couple of turns, just because we're deep in it and it's taken a lot of time. I can see that we've got some folks posting. So Red Tide South from S&T and D-Day at Omaha Beach. That's a challenging game there, Bob. Sorry, Andy. And Bob Mosel is playing Ukraine 43 and Stalingrad 42. Very nice. 2 great systems from GMT and the Mark Simonich, as well as some D&D. I'd be curious, how many people on this chat have actually played D&D before? Because I used to play all the time. I loved Dungeons and Dragons when I was a young lad. Just early college days, late high school, we played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. Dark Valley, good times. Love the Dark Valley, and I need to get that. I sold it when I heard they were getting the second edition out, and I've heard it's significantly different. So I need to jump on that bad boy. Oh, I did not mention Shane. You have your own publishing going on. There's also 2 other companies I wanted to mention that I am now drawing a blank on, doggone it. Matt White, who's the artist for the Storms of Steel Conflict of Heroes game. He's the artist for the rule book, and I think for the counters as well. So I would encourage you to check him out. He has his own sort of games that you can buy from him and download and print. Looks like guys are new. I see that Keith is working on new lock and load tactical stuff. That'd be awesome. Falklands. Oh, Kyle, are you playing the 5th edition rules, or are you playing the older stuff? Look at all these D&D guys. This is awesome. All right, RAF is a fun game as well. I'm trying to see what else. With Full Thrust, 3W Ancients, and Navajo Wars. That's a spread right there. Look at that. Navajo Wars, never played it. I've heard good things about it. It looks like a really sweet little game. And the 3W Ancients, I don't know that system at all, but I know 3W, the now defunct 3W. I'm talking about this comment here, guys. Oh, you're playing On Battles, are you, Jeff? Cool. That's actually a 2D10 game, isn't it? Because that's percentile results. Good system. I like the On Battle system. Hopefully it'll get published by someone. Oh, Keith, you're going to be in trouble with that less than 60 miles business. All right, let's see. You know, there's another game company, Grognard Systems. We didn't talk about them at all. There's a one-man shop. Chris Fasulo got 2 or 3 different systems. Their main player is the Death Ride system, which is 98.9% focused on the Battle of Kursk. You know, it's the World Guinness Records largest or second largest war game ever, based on map size and stuff like that, and counters. So that's another game system that or game company that we should be giving us some support to. But once again, very, very expensive for what you get, and you know, the artwork kind of is what it is. It is literally a one-man shop. Game system, game mechanics though are excellent and very, very interesting, and I do want to spend more time on them. So, but I just haven't had a chance to. Not super impressed with anything else that I played from them, but I certainly do like the Death Ride system. Fields of Fire character, that'd be awesome. All right. Well, look. So I did just want to ask you what you all were playing, and I think what am I going to? So I am going to do Lock and Load and Deadly Northern Lights, and then I'm going to get into Nations at War on the PC, the digital version of that. I've got some turn. I think I've got a turn of the Rising Eagles, the Austerlitz battle from Hexasim. I need to do. I'm going to go look at the maps for DAC 2 with Tony. Because I'm going to make sure that I give him a bit of an ass kicking the next time I play with him, because he gave me a whooping last time we played. And that's probably the gist of it. I'm trying to think of any of the other. The only one of the other companies we didn't talk about was Vivictus, the French magazine. They do a lot of magazine games. They have some pretty interesting stuff as well. So, Powers of Glory by Vassal, that's pretty cool. Look at you guys. Kernstown, great game. Love that. What you doing, Kernstown 1 or 2, Vango? Yeah, we've got a little bit of delay here, so it'll take him a second. I think I played the larger of the 2 Kernstown battles. Oh, and I didn't mention Phalanx. You know what? I'm sorry. Someone mentioned Phalanx earlier on. That's what I was looking for when there was that awful quiet pause. Phalanx is doing some good reprints and reboots of games as well. So they redid Hannibal Rome versus Carthage with minis and all that sort of good stuff. Great game company. They released Freedom, which is kind of a pseudo strategy war game about the siege of some city in Greece back in the Greek Civil War. That was a pretty interesting game, and I encourage you to have a look at that one, actually. And then they've got some other stuff. They just did a space game, and they sent me a prototype of it to play, and I sent them a note and said, it's not really for me. I think maybe you should let me pack this up and send it to another reviewer. So I sent that off. No point trying to do a review on something I didn't get, and B, didn't care about, really. All right, I'm gonna let you guys go. It's long enough. An hour. How do we take an hour to talk about the war game companies? All right, good stuff. All right, guys. I really appreciate you guys checking in and watching. It's been awesome. It's always fun to have a chat. I'm going to try and get more people on the chats the next couple I do, so that it's just not one talking head. And I had nothing to share with you on the screen today, so you had to look at the mug and my kitchen in the background. So my apologies, but all the best. Hey, Jack, thanks for checking in. We're leaving, man. Good timing. Fellowship of Simulations. Hey, Chris, I will check that out. I will check this guy out. Yeah, I guess, Fango, I was kind of asking which, I thought there were 2 battles in Kernstown, Kernstown 1 and 2, but maybe I'm thinking of a different home allotment game. All right, folks, I will talk to all of you soon. All the best. Stay safe out there, and I look forward to getting back to normal with all of you just as soon as we can. Cheers.